And the melting pot for this includes the futures of a number of their players. And the interesting part is whether that's also playing a factor in some of the inconsistency or lack of development in recent times. So Ben King is the trade kingpin in so many different ways at the moment because so many clubs and different players are going to be shaped by whatever he does or doesn't do. He's got a 2-year offer in front of him, about $1.35 million from the Suns. That also includes, guys, an option for him to sign an extra 6 years beyond that, which is a pure player option. So he actually can't lose by signing it. He can do the long, short, anytime. So that's there on the table. And as of a month ago, when he was in Darwin, that was the suggestion that he was likely to come back, tick it off, move on. But that's changed, and he's still... wobbly is probably a bit of a strong word, but he's certainly taking much more time to think about this call than he ever has, I think. So there's that part of it. Then there's Bailey Humphrey, who wanted to leave last year, met with clubs. Clubs are still trying to pry him out really strongly. It's taken to the point of Damien Hardwick getting on the front foot and saying he's not going anywhere. I'm not 100% sure that that'll end up being the case, but that's a strong public stance. And then there's Jed Walter, who has a 5-year offer on the table now from the Suns because they don't want to be able to lose both Walter and King. But all the way through this year, Jed Walter has ridden shotgun, really, on what Ben King is going to do because he wants to see if there's going to be a spot for him inside that forward half consistently. So, and whether his own development for a top 5 pick is really getting to that level in and of itself is another discussion. But, yeah, the future of those players, I think, is adding to the uncertainty of the club. And certainly... Gold Coast is far more nervous about Ben King's future than it was a month ago.
One last question before we go to the callers. So if Ben King leaves the Gold Coast Suns, what's your batting order of the clubs at the front of the queue?
I
Top
think,
3.
Well, Hawthorn is the one. Hawthorn is the one. And this is why there's so many strands to this decision, because if they go for Ben King, it'll force a trade because Gold Coast would match the offer and say, let's do a deal here with picks. So then that puts moves for Bailey Humphrey and Zach Merritt into jeopardy as well. So this is why Ben King's really the key point of the whole trade. I know it's a long way away, but the whole trade landscape. So I have Hawthorn well ahead in terms of the clubs in Melbourne who are chasing him. Geelong has interest. I think if he's coming back to be home, I don't think he's going to play at Geelong. Collingwood's been interested as well, but in the end, I think it's either stay at Gold Coast or try and get to Hawthorn.
Okay. Doesn't get to play with his brother if he goes to Hawthorn.
No. Maxie's up there at the Gold Coast at the moment. He's doing a bit of a training stint up there away from the footy club.
You'd say that, and you'd say you'd love that, but you probably don't need 2 of them. I mean, Max unfortunately can't get on the field injured. But even if they're both fitting well, you don't really think you need 2 of that type of player. Like, at the same time, I'm talking. They're both good individually, but not so good in the same team, I wouldn't have thought.
No, I take that
for the romance of it, I'm talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Lloydie's always, because he coached both of them at home, he used to play them both together in the Fortnite. A lot different at APS school level, of course. But it's going to be a huge watch in the second half of the season, the decision that Ben King makes. Let's move on before we take a second break, and then the lethal injection and why not too far away. And Cal, you're obviously all over the trade space, and even though we're only halfway through the home and away season, you've touched on some of the issues that the Gold Coast Suns are trying to get their heads around at the moment. What about the likes of Lachie Neale and Zak Butters in terms of their futures post-26?
Yeah, 2 of the biggest free agents in the game. So let's start with Lachie Neale, who has spoken with Collingwood, who's had a lot of interest from around the country, both WA clubs and West Coast and Fremantle. Adelaide has interest in him. St Kilda's got a link to him through Ross Lyon, of course. And then there's Collingwood, who are looking to continue down the free agency path. He comes for free, like literally nothing in terms of draft picks. They can't match a deal for him. He can walk to wherever he wants to go. Brisbane wants to keep him. We heard Chris Fagan say this week that it'd be a bit of a head scratcher for him to go to a Melbourne club. But this is part of Lockie's thinking, and I think absolutely at the moment the likelihood is that he's leaving Brisbane. It's just a matter of where, Lee. Collingwood likes the idea of playing Lachie Neale next to Nick Dacos and the assistance that he'd be able to provide to Nick Dacos. But he's 33. My understanding is that they're prepared to offer a 3-year deal to get him across the line, so that takes him through to 36. He'd be winning the best and fairest this year at Brisbane.
His form's been outstanding, so his form's been good, no doubt about that. And and players are playing into their mid-30s more often now. He doesn't look like a player who's about to sort of fall off the. Yeah, no, I think the only thing was the any thought of him not finishing his career at the Lions was based on is there an area or a club that is closer to the family and the kids who are basically in Perth at this particular point in time. And I guess the thing that has been the bit of the head scratcher, I would have thought, for the Lions people is how come the Melbourne clubs seem to be... So Lachie's obviously thinking may have evolved, and whatever he was thinking back in February or March, he might be thinking differently in June and July. And I guess that's fair enough. That's what individuals do. But there may be all the attraction of coming and playing here on Anzac Day and the King's birthday game and all the big games that Collingwood play at the MCG.
Do you think it's a good fit?
Good fit for Collingwood, yeah. No doubt about that. No, he's a good player. No doubt about that. So he would make any club better.
That's the big name. Well, he's in the twilight of his career. They could still well get another good 3 or 4 years out of him, whichever club he lands at, or if he stays with the Lions next year. In terms of in the prime of their career, Zak Butters is the big name for the end of the season. Still only 25 years young. Before we listen to what you've got to say about the current situation, Cal, Josh Carr, the Port Adelaide coach, had a pointed response to Luke Beveridge's comments regarding the Bulldogs' obviously keen interest in picking up the Port Adelaide superstar midfielder. Here's Josh Carr during the week.
I'd like to say I'm probably a little bit different than some coaches. Those conversations, if I do have them, you guys won't know about. And I always love when a coach starts with, I don't really like talking about other clubs' players, but then go for 4.5, 5 minutes and talk about it.
And that was direct reference to Luke Beveridge the day before, who did say that I'm not into talking about opposition players, but then spoke about how he'd had a coffee with Zak Butters back from where he was drafted and continued to keep in touch with Zak. They are clearly, look, I use the word obsessed. The Western Bulldogs are obsessed with getting Zak Butters.
Yeah.
Absolutely obsessed with it, and have been for a long time. He's a Western Suburbs boy. Obviously grew up barracking for the Western Bulldogs. I still have them in 1A to get him. But he's got interest, of course, across Collingwood, who are interested in free agents. And then there's Richmond, who will be able to table the biggest offer of the lot. And then Geelong, who are absolutely still in that conversation too. He's going to be in Victoria next year. It's just about a matter of how he decides on this next bid.
I thought Bevo went a step too far. I mean, I think I'm for still at the moment. Don't talk about players from other clubs. You're going to go and see them and you're going to fate them, all that kind of stuff. But I just think it sort of puts it into the public forum, and I'm not sure if it helps, or does it? Well, Callum, that's the point. Is it a bit of a pre-designed strategy in those comments rather than just he went a sentence or two too far in terms of talking about an opposition player?
I think there's a lot of strategy in the whole pursuit of Zak Butters, and I think that all the clubs who know Zak Butters well know that he reads, consumes, watches so much footy. He is an absolute footy head. Actually, it's rare you see that the very best players tune into everything. And he knows what's going on in all parts of it. Not that he's obsessed by it himself, but he loves the game. Footy is his thing. So I think in a lot of ways, the clubs who've spoken about Zak Butters are speaking to Zak Butters through the media sometimes as well as, I'm sure, behind the scenes too.